Good day, systems thinkers. Welcome back to my channel. And for today, I will be discussing the lesson 3 in systems thinking, which is about the causal loop diagrams. Or later, para hindi ko na siya sabihin ng mahaba, CLD na lang. So, yun. So, CLD, for today, we will be discussing about CLD and also feedback loops, reinforcing feedback loops, and balancing feedback loops. So, I will be dividing into this video into two kasi medyo mahaba siya. What I will do is, for this first part, I will introduce you to CLD and feedback loops and also reinforcing feedback loops. And then for another video, I will be discussing the balancing feedback loops and the combination of reinforcing and balancing feedback loops. So, please bear with me. Kailangan napanood na itong video na ito before you proceed with the balancing feedback loop kasi baka hindi mo maintindihan yung second video. Okay, so now let's start with defining what causal loop diagram is. Okay, a CLD is a causal diagram that aids in visualizing how different variables in a system are interrelated or how different elements in a system are interrelated. So kung naaalala nyo, ang system structure natin is it should have elements, interconnection or interrelation, and purpose. So alam naman na natin lahat ng system may purpose kahit isang simpleng system lang yan. Pero what CLD is try to make us visualize is how the different elements in a system are interconnected with one another. CLD, ang CLD is comprised of two or more variables connected by links, which usually take the form of arrows. If you remember the stack and flow diagrams, di ba yung mga inflow, outflow natin, yung mga arrow siya. So ngayon, we will be more focusing on CLD, which is more likely like this. Ayan. For example, here, this shows relationships between variables. So our variables or the elements here are stress level, ayan, and coping strategies. So for example, you are working, ayan, and then yung stress level mo, for example, is tumaas, and when your stress level rises, the use of coping strategies also rises. So, iisip ka ngayon, what are your coping strategies, di ba? So, kayo ba, when you were being stressed, ano ang coping strategy nyo or what do you do? Diba? Ako, sometimes, I listen to music, I go out kapag gabi, I watch, or I do stargazing, ganyan. So, those are my coping strategies. How about you? What are your coping strategies? So, you may write it down in the comment section. So for example, in this CLD, this is the stress level. So, kapag tumaas yung stress level mo, therefore, yan, this is the arrow, okay? How does stress level is directly related? Anong interconnection niya sa coping strategies? So, syempre, pag tumaas ang stress level, iisip ka ngayon ng iba't ibang coping strategies. Minsan yan, you will take supplements. So, I remember, there was one, pinost niya sa Facebook na nung in-interview daw siya in a company, tinanong daw siya, how do you cope with stress? And sabi niya daw that he's drinking stress tab. So yun, so maybe, di ba, you will drink a supplement para maka-cope sa stress. You will eat ice cream or whatever it is. Okay, so when your coping strategies also rises, ayan, umisip ka ng iba't ibang way on how will you cope with that, syempre, ma-reduce yung stress level mo. Okay. So if you're going to look at this CLD, meron ditong S, tsaka may O. Okay. S means the variables have the same, parang same relation. Ibig sabihin, kapag tumaas to, tataas din to. That's the same relationship. Okay. Kapag O naman, opposite. Ibig sabihin, pag yung isa tumaas, yung isa bababa. Okay. For example, kapag tumaas yung stress level, ayan, tataas ang coping strategies mo. Pag tumaas na yung coping strategies mo, bababa na yung stress level mo. Okay? That's the relevance of S and O. Later, you will see more of this. Okay? Aside from connecting two variables through each link, ayan, meron din siyang sign that provides information on the relationship between the variables. So, it could be, ayan, halimbawa dito sa balance in savings account and interest payments, for example, ayan, parehas naman siyang S. Ibig sabihin, parehas siyang kung pataas, pataas, kung pababa, pababa. For example, balance in account savings account, tumaas, syempre yung interest niyan, tataas din. Kapag tumaas yung interest niyan, tataas yung balance mo sa savings account, tama ba? And then, after another month, tataas ulit yung interest mo. Okay, so again, that's the relevance of SS and S and O. Okay, now, okay, let's proceed with feedback. So, first, I discussed the CLT. Okay, later we will go back through that. Kasi when we talk about the reinforcing and balancing feedback loop, we will use both of them. Si feedback naman, first, is that it pertains to a control mechanism that creates consistent behavior in a system. So as human, tayo, yung mga expert in the economic industry or whatever system ang pinag-aaralan, yung mga systems thinker, we monitor stocks constantly, diba? So, syempre kapag ka bumaba or tumaas yung stocks, we will make decisions, we will take actions to either raise that stocks or lower that stocks or keep that stock within acceptable ranges. And those decisions and actions that we make affect the success and the failures of a system. And syempre, we make decisions through the feedback. Kapag yung stock mo is na-maintain in a certain range, no matter what is going on around it, there's a control mechanism at work. That is the feedback. So, for example, bumaba ang stocks natin or bumaba ang kita natin, for example, bumaba yung cash in a company. So, magsisend yan ng feedback. Okay, that's feedback, yung response. And then, you're going to decide naman ngayon, what are you going to do kasi bumaba yung cash. Halimbawa, tumaas naman yung kita natin. So, magsisend ulit ng feedback yan. It could be effective yung system that you are applying. That is why it's happening. Or, and then, pwede mo siyang i-continue or pwede mo i-improve pa itong system. So, that is the feedback. And feedback loop is a closed circuits. These are closed circuits of interconnection between variables and sequences of mutual cause and effect. Ang feedback loop is formed kapag may changes in stock that can either affect the inflow and outflow of the same stocks. For example, ayan, kanina, kung naaalala nyo itong savings account, ayan, so kapag tumaas ang stock, naapektuhan ng inflow, tumataas yung interest, syempre, di ba? Or it could, kung naapektuhan din yung outflow, ibig sabihin may feedback loop. Okay, so that's the relevance of the feedback loop. Now, the links between each variable illustrates how the variables are interconnected. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. So, pag nakita mo yung feedback loop and CLD, it illustrates kung paanong connect-connect yung mga variables na yon and yung signs na S and O, ayan, it shows how the variables impact one another. It could be kung S, syempre same. So, dapat kung pataas ka, pataas din tong kabila na to kung may nakalagay na S or O. Kapag pataas tong isa, bababa naman tong isa or vice versa. So, for example, ayan. So, this is the stock. So, if yung amount ng stock mo will affect the inflow and the outflow sa mismong stock mo, there is an existing or obviously there is a feedback loop. Yung sinabi ko kanina, di ba, savings account mo, kapag ang stock mo is yung savings account mo, tapos tumaas or mataas tong nilaglagay ka ng malaki doon sa savings account mo. Tapos after a month, hindi mo ginalaw yon, syempre tataas ang isa sa inflow mo, which is ang interest ng pera na yon. So, syempre, inflow yan. So, sasama siya ulit dito. It will affect again the flow of the stocks and so on and so forth. Okay? Next. For example, here, ayan. So, ito na yung sinabi ko kanina, yan. It affects how much money will come into your account as the interest. So, pag nakita mo yung bank statement mo, you will get a direct kind of feedback loop. Makikita mo agad doon yung effect. If your stock or your money goes down, syempre, di ba, pag nakita mo, di ba, tinignan mo yung bank statement mo, tapos parang bumaba yung, ibig sabihin marami kang withdraw, di ba? you will now decide to work, ayan, for more hours. Sige, mag-overtime ako. Tatanggapin ko yung mga racket-racket or mga magbebenta-benta ako kasi nakita ko ngayon, nag-send sa akin ng feedback, okay, to na bumaba itong stock ko. So what I will do right now is I will work for more hours. Na-get? So yun, so ibig sabihin, naapektuhan ikaw, kasi kasama ka dun sa sistema na yun, and then, naapektuhan yung inflow mo. So you will now decide to work for more hours. Now, what if kabaliktaran naman yung nangyari? So kapag ka tumaas naman yung pera mo, so nakita mo, wow, tumataas yung pera ko. Pwede ha, pero pwede naman din hindi. Halimbawa na lang tumataas, so medyo naging complacent ka for that moment na, sige, hindi muna ako mag-overtime, tsaka hindi muna din ako magbebenta-benta kasi it can lead you to work less hours. Okay, again, hindi ko sinasabing lahat, pero it could happen. Halimbawa, napagod ka syempre for that month kasi puro OT ka, tumaas naman yung sahod mo. So, parang ngayon, medyo maglalaylo ka muna in your overtime. Pwedeng ganon. Okay? This kind of feedback loop is keeping our cash within a range that is acceptable to us. Kasi, for example, ako, ano ba, yung particular person, ang gusto niyang maipon is 1 million. Diba? Tapos, kahit nakikita niya na yung 100,000 niya lumalaki, mag-work pa rin siya na mag-work kasi yun yung goal niya, yung 1 million. Pero kung halimbawa, ang goal niya lang is 100,000, tapos nakuha mo na agad yung goal mo na yun. Diba? That is what is acceptable on your mind, diba? Na malaki ng pera. So, pwede ka na ngayong mag-decide not to work for more hours, diba? Or magbakasyon ka muna kasi you already have this or nakuha mo tong goal mo na to. So, yun. So, in that way, so, yun. So that is an example of a feedback loop. And like what I've said before, sabi ko sa inyo, there's more than one way to solve system problems, diba? So in this case, hindi lang inflow ang pwedeng maapektuhan sa changes ng stock, pwede rin yung outflow. For example, dahil nakita mo bumaba yung savings mo or yung pera mo sa bangko, papawasan mo ngayon or titipid-tipid ka muna ng konti, diba? So yun. So, you will see or imagine an outflow adjusting feedback loop. Adjust mo yung outflow mo or kung paanong pinagkakagastusan. So, yan. So, I have a question here before we proceed with the reinforcing feedback loop. Ma'am, ayan, do all systems have feedback loops? Yan. Lahat po kaya ng sistema, it has feedback loops. Some systems, okay, or di ba sa characteristics ng systems natin, it has feedbacks. Okay? So, but how about feedback loops? Most of the systems and that we have should have a feedback loop. Kasi syempre, what are we going to do now kapag di tayo naka-receive ng feedback from that particular system? But there are also systems na sobrang simple, open-ended chains lang ng stocks and flows. For example, yung bathtub natin in the past lesson, di ba? So yun, so it will, although kung nag-experiment ka, ganyan, titignan mo kung gaano kabilis bumababa yung tubig compare doon sa gaano kabilis siya napupuno, mga ganyan. So yun, medyo kukuha ka ng feedback loops doon. Pero kung wala lang, naligo ka lang doon, and then you open the plug, and then dinrain mo, that's an example of an open-ended chain, di ba? Wala na tayong aabangan na feedback loop doon. So yun, so again, most of the systems, pero hindi lahat, ay may feedback loops. Some systems are just open-ended chains lang ng stocks and flows. Okay? So that is one. Okay, that is about the causal loop diagrams and the feedback loops. Next, let's proceed with reinforcing feedback loops. So here, before that, I'll be showing some quotations relating to reinforcing feedback loops. Okay, let's do this. First one, according to Honor Balzac, a 19th century novelist and playwright, he said, I need rest to refresh my brain. So, di ba, we all want to refresh our brain, pero we need to, that is why we need to rest. And to get rest, it is necessary to travel, di ba? So, para makapahinga ka, pwede ka mag-travel. Pero kung mag-travel ka, you must have money. And in order to get money, you have to work. So imagine that. You want rest, pero dahil kailangan magbakasyon para makapahinga, you must, bago ka makapagbakasyon, kailangan may pera ka. And para may pera, kailangan mo magtrabaho, di ba? So I am in a vicious circle from which it is impossible to escape. Okay, that's para magkaroon ka ng idea what is reinforcing feedback loop. Next. Ayan, sabi ni John Tinbergen, an economist, here we meet a very important feature. It would seem as if this were circular reasoning. So parang paikot-ikot lang. Profits fell because investment fell. Okay? Bumagsak ang puhunan dahil ang investment ay bumagsak at bumagsak ang investment dahil bumagsak ang puhunan. Okay? And I think, ayan, so those are the two. Later, I will show more rated quotation that we have. Diba, imagine, kahit simple lang siya, when it comes to our everyday life, you just need the rest, my feedback loop. We just need to study the economy, may feedback loop with it. So yun, so let's discuss first the reinforcing feedback. So, ang reinforcing feedback loop is a self-multiplying structure in the system that can cause either growth or destruction. Okay, you have to remember this. It can grow or it can collapse something, okay, or that system. It enhances whatever direction of change is imposed on it. So kung pinataas mo to, i-enhance niya yon. Okay, so yon. So kaya nire-reinforce. And you have to remember, kapag nakakakita ka ng diagram, ang reinforcing feedback loop ay may letter R. Okay, so it means that they're reinforcing. It generates more input sa stock, the more that is already there. Pero kung less yung input mo sa stock, the less that is already there. So yun. So reinforcing loops can be viewed, sabi ko kanina, these are the engines of growth and collapse. That is, they compound change in one direction with even more change in that direction. So it could be, di ba sabi ko nga sa inyo, yung S tsaka yung O. Kung may nakalagay na S in a reinforcing feedback loop, kapag tinaas mo yung particular na variable, okay, kapag same sila ng effect sa reinforcing feedback loop, i-reinforce niya yung another variable, mas tataasan niya pa yung effect nito. Kapag ka naman, halimbawa, naka-O or opposite, so yung isa tumaas, tapos ito naman, sobrang ibabagsak niya naman. Ganon yung feedback loop. So, many reinforcing loops have a quality of accelerating movement or decelerating movement in a precise direction. A sense that the more one variable changes, the more another changes. As a result, sabi ko nga kanina, this is known as a vicious cycles, di ba? Parang nasa circle na you have to parang iabutin ng abutin dahil tumataas, so abutin mo ng abutin or bumababa, kailangan mo siyang ibagsak ng ibagsak. So, yun, depending on the impact of the change. For example, ayan, para mas maintindihan niyo what is reinforcing feedback loop. This is an example of employee-supervisor reinforcing loop. Imagine you are a supervisor and you work with an employee. Halimbawa, ang pangalan ng employee mo is Ruth. Okay? So, yun. Ngayon, ayan, this is the structure of the reinforcing feedback loop. Look at this. There is letter R. Ibig sabihin, it is a reinforcing feedback loop. For example, tumaas ang performance ni Ruth for this particular month. Okay? So, tumaas yung performance niya. Ikaw naman, supervisor, para you will support Ruth, di ba? You will say, oh, good job. You will show appreciation. Kapag nag-ask siya ng advice, parang ang sarap-sarap niyang tulungan, di ba? Kasi ang laki ng contribution niya for the company and taas ng niya, ng employee performance niya. That's S. Mataas ang performance, it will result to higher support from the supervisor. So, higher support ng supervisor, syempre sisipagan yung employee mo. So, there is another S. Ayan, tataas ulit ang employee performance. Tumaas ang employee performance, tataas ulit ang iyong supportive behavior sa kanya at tataas ulit ang employee performance. Naintindihan, it's a vicious cycle, okay? So, the dynamic could start with improvement in Ruth's performance that will motivate you to act more supportively. Kaya yun nga di ba, kahit ako as a manager or supervisor, kung nakikita ko nagsisikap at maganda ang performance nitong employee ko na to, masusuportahan ko siya. But, for example, bumaba yung performance niya. Okay? Bababa din ang iyong supportive behavior, di ba? Yung iba, okay? But again, pwede din namang yan, di ba? Kapag bumaba yung performance niya, masuportahan mo siya. O yung may mga dynamic na mga supervisor na gano'n, di ba? But kumbaga parang as human beings na automatically, ang response natin is kapag syempre natutulungan niya tayo, masusuportahan natin siya. So yun, so the behavior over time graph here, if you're going to look at it, pataas na performance level, pataas ang this is not a time, it's the supportive behavior. Or it could be the time that you will be spending to work. Okay? Pero pag pababa din yung supportive behavior sa kanya. Okay? One more thing. Ayan. This is one example of reinforcing feedback loop na merong O naman. So, ito naman, hindi sila parehas ng effect. Kapag tumaas yung isa, bababa yung isa. So, for example, when we have increasing layoffs or yung mga nagtatanggal-tanggal ng mga empleyado sa isang kumpanya. So, syempre, kapag, halimbawa, ngayong pandemic, di ba, maraming natanggal sa isang company. Ngayon, yung mga employee, tumaas to, no? Tumaas. There is an O, ibig sabihin, opposite ang effect. Bumaba ang confidence, employee confidence. So, they will now feel unsecured, unstable, or dahil wala ka ng confidence, bumababa na yung confidence mo, tumataas ngayon ng anxiety. Imagine, tumaas ang layoff, bumaba ang employee confidence, tumaas ang anxiety kasi there is an opposite effect or na-reinforce niya yung particular na pangyayari na iyon. Now, tumaas ang anxiety, bumaba ang employee performance. Imagine, okay, na-imagine nyo ba? Tumaas ang layoff, bumaba ang confidence ng mga employee, tumaas ang anxiety, and bumaba ngayon ang performance. Ngayon, kung bababa yung performance ng isang employee, di ba, you might consider na i-lay off na lang din siya, di ba? Kasi kung bababa yung productivity niya and efficiency niya and effectivity niya in the company, baka hindi na siya nakakatulong for the company. So, what will happen is, pwede mo na siyang i-lay off. So, yun. So, this is an example of reinforcing feedback loop. So, again, it will tumaas yung isang variable. It could happen na tumaas yung isang variable, bumaba yung isa ng sobrang baba. Tapos, connect na naman sila, tataas ulit, bababa ulit, and so on and so forth. Again, it's a vicious cycle. A visual way to identify an R loop or reinforcing feedback loop is to count the number of O's or yung mga opposites. Ibig sabihin, kapag merong even number, what are even numbers? 2, 4, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. So, yun. So, kapag merong even numbers ng letter O or opposite, the loop is reinforcing. Although, di natin alam kasi pwede namang walang nakalagay na S and O dyan, pero one way to see that is to count the S and O. Okay? But kung walang nakalagay, you have to understand the loop. Kailangan intindihin mo yon before you come up if this is a reinforcing feedback loop or a balancing feedback loop. This is an example ng situation wherein we experience a vicious cycle or a reinforcing feedback. First, the more prices go up, the more wages have to go up. Pansinin nyo in our economy, kapag nagkaroon ng inflation, yung mga Department of Labor o kaya yung mga party list supporting yung mga manggagawa is they're asking for wage increase, di ba? Papataasan nila yung minimum salary, ganun. Kasi why? Kasi pataas yung inflation. And kapag ano yung nangyari, dahil nagtaas nga yung, halimbawa yung oil, si mga jeepney drivers naman, mag-a-ask naman din sila ng price increase din in our transportation fee. So yun, so pataas siya ng pataas. That's reinforcing. Now, ayan, the wages have to go up if people are to maintain their standards of living. Now, pataas yung wages, syempre yung mga company, saan naman nila kukunin yung ipapasweldo nila na dagdag, di ba? So, idalagay din nila yung sa mga products nila. Now, the prices have to go up again to maintain their profits. This means that wages have to go up again, so prices go up again. Again, it's a vicious cycle. That's reinforcing feedback loop. Okay? Now, ay ma'am, mababago ba natin yan? If you want to change that, you have to change the system. Okay? Next. Ayan. The more soil, ayan, this, with our environment, the more soil is eroded from the land. So, mas bumabagsak yung mga soil, nagkakaroon ng soil erosion, the less plants are able to grow. Mas konti lang yung matataniman kasi nag-erode na yung mga soil. So, the fewer roots there are to hold the soil. Mas kukunti na ngayon yung mga ugat na kakapit sa mga soil, so the more soil is eroded. So, dahil nga, di ba, nagkakaroon ng soil erosion dahil sa yung mga roots, ay kumukonti na lang yung mga puno, therefore, yung konti na lang yung kumakapit na mga roots on our soil. Therefore, mas lalong magsa-soil erosion, mas lalong less yung plants that can grow. Ito naman yung example ng pababa ng pababa. Okay? So, yun. So, those are some of the implications in our lives. Again, ito ulit yung sinasabi ko kanina about your money in your savings account. Kapag reinforcing feedback loop siya, ibig sabihin, pataas yung money mo in the bank account, the interest will be increased. Okay? Kahit same lang yung interest rate, hindi na babago. Pero tataas yung, yung mataas yung savings mo in your bank account, kaya mataas din yung interest mo. Next is, for example, ayan, halimbawa, ang first year mo, nag-deposit ka lang $100. So, walang, withdrawals over 12 years, kunwari. Ayan. The more is there, the more is added. Kaya siya, di ba, yung compounding in finance and yung exponential growth. So, yun yung nakagawa na. But again, if you will not, kung hindi mo yan kukunin, di ba? So, yun. So, we could have, good news and bad news with that. Halimbawa, money in the bank, so pataas ng pataas. Pwede rin ngayon, di ba, yung mga people with HIV or AIDS, pataas din ng pataas. Pests in the field, it could be pataas ng pataas for our national economy. So, for example, you have more in a factory. You have more machines and factories. You have more machines in your factory. Ngayon, mas marami kang maproduce na goods and services. Mas marami kang ngayong pambili again in your new machines and factories. Ganun siya. So, the more money you make in a business system, the more capacity you have to make even more money. Okay? So, yun. So, it's your reinforcing feedback loop. Again, sabi ko kayo na, these are self-enhancing, leading to exponential growth or runaway collapses over time. They are found whenever a stock has the capacity to reinforce or reproduce itself. And they said that RFL, or reinforcing feedback loops, are the central engine of growth in an economy. Growth or collapse of an economy. Kaya dapat, as systems thinker, in our country or in your business, dapat aware ka. What are the variables that is reinforcing something, and what are the variables na nagbabalance lang, which is later we will discuss about balancing feedback loop. Next. Ayan. So, yun. So, for example, one example here, yung capital stock mo in your company is, syempre, halimbawa, after a year in a corporation, mag-declare ng dividends. Or, halimbawa kayo, as a partnership, mag-divide kayo ng profit. So, halimbawa, yung profit nyo is, nire-invest mo in your capital. Diba? Nag-invest ka, hindi mo kinuha yung kita mo na 100,000, sige, dadagdag ko yan. So, madadagdagan yung output mo or madadagdagan yung capital mo again, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. So, if before we end the part 1 of this video, I want to ask this question. Okay? So, if A, or variable A, influences another variable, is it possible that B influences another variable also? Okay? For example, if population growth causes poverty, then it's a B variable. Is it possible that poverty influences population growth also? Diba? It could be possible. It's the same with other systems that we have. That is why I am telling you, in systems thinking, instead of looking for who is to blame, but you will start asking, what is the system? ano ba, halimbawa, bumagsak yung particular economy or bumagsak yung isang negosyo na to. You will not look and ask yung manager niyan, ganyan, ganyan. Kasi yung may-ari niyan, ganyan, ganyan. First, you just have to ask what is the system. Oh, yung owner, syempre, malaki yung part niya in doing the system, in thinking about the system. But you have to check what is the system, check it, check mo what are the reinforcing feedback loops, what are the feedback, because the feedback loops opens and the CLDs open up the idea that the system can cause its own behavior. Kung may problema sa isang organization, may problema sa isang negosyo, we can now think or let's lawakan natin yung pag-iisip natin na kung may problema dyan, it could be the system that creates its own system behavior or that creates its own problem. It could be the system that is nag-reinforce pa ng problema within the system. So yun. So that is the first one. I hope to see you on the next video about the balancing feedback loop.